Hello and welcome back to another Demis Hellen tutorial. We're going to take a look at following on from the previous video, which was about different ways to approach arpeggiation using MIDI effects or using insert effects from third-party plugin providers, arpeggiators that are in synths. There's all different ways that we can create them, as well as MIDI itself and actually putting something down on the piano roll. So we are going to create 3 different MIDI arpeggiated sequences, and we're going to offset them slightly different just to show you the different effects that they have. It's not groundbreaking stuff, but it is handy to know if you are wanting to enhance your arpeggios a little bit with using some of the information. You can see the playlist on screen now. This is for the arpeggio videos, including the one that we've just done previously, but all the other ones as well. So you can see everything in one place. And don't forget to check out all the other playlists. And also don't forget to comment and like on the video as well. It does help share it with the rest of the community. Right, so we're going to open this MIDI clip. We're going to focus on one bar at this moment, just so we can keep the tutorial really simple and easy to follow. But at the same time, you can then take that and expand it out yourself over 4 bars, 8 bars, 16 bars, whatever you're going to be doing with it. And you can apply it to your own arpeggios as well. And we're just going to use A to do this, and all white notes. If you are not familiar with theory of music, you can visit Scales and Chords, always in the description, to go and visit scalesandchords.com to help you with scales and chords. Okay, so let's listen to this. Very, very simple. So let's just repeat that 4 times over the space of 1 bar. Nothing too fancy, so we are just going to shift this like that. So we've got 1 on the beat, then 1 in between the beat, and then this one is going to be on the beat again. Okay, very, very simple, and I'm draw a rolling bass in there as well. So make your lower end a little bit more interesting, move it around, cut some notes out, make a nice groove with that. But for this, we're going to just use a rolling bass. So I'm just going to drop this an octave. Sounds much, much better. In fact, what we will do is make this a little simpler. We'll have it just rolling upwards like that, and then we'll have a little roll down at the end to kind of loop it back round. And if we put that an octave again. Okay, so this lower bass is taking the focus away a little bit, so I'm just going to separate them a little bit more. So you can hear very basic stuff. Now that's a great arpeggio. If that's what you're looking for in your track, then by all means just use that. We can alternate the direction. We can have these 3 notes falling instead of rising. So many different little bits that you can do with it, but we've explained that in that previous video. So what can we do here with a second pattern? I'm going to delete all these rolling notes for now. We're going to introduce some more in a second. I'm going to delete all the repetitions and just have this bit. Now, how can we make this a little bit more interesting? We can start splitting it up like we did before we came up with that pattern. There's all different approaches. Everything you can do there that is interesting. Now, if we take the A that's here, we're going to go the octave above for now and put some bass notes in just to fill the gap and the gap after. We suddenly get a little bit of a different rhythm. But it's starting to sound interesting, and we can do what we did before and just have on the beat, off the beat, and then back on the beat. And get rid of that one, and then we have a pattern there. And we can do a multitude of things with this. We can alternate the pattern back and forth if we want. We can have 1 octave above for some of the notes. And we can even have that octave up so it's the bass is starting to merge with the melody a little bit. So it's really what floats your boat, and that is just a very simple way of creating an iteration, because a lot of people do ask, that's why this video is here, about how do you create iterations. We're not aiming to create an amazing trance arpeggio here, we're just looking and understanding patterns, rhythms, etc. There's millions more that you can go with, but these are some of the best starting points for arpeggios for myself anyway. Okay, so let's take that first arpeggio again and copy it over, and here's our third iteration. Now we can have a slightly different approach to this, and we can pick out a rhythm that we like. So I'm just going to do this on the A above. Okay, and I'm just going to go for something simple. This is what I do in a bass pattern, for example. Just get rid of that a second. Okay, so we have that rhythm now. So I'm going to drag this across to match the starting point of this one, and so on. So we have this. Remove that. So now we get a different feel to what we just had with just the singular note, which typically you'd hear in a bass. Starts to make everything a little bit more interesting. So these bass notes, let's drag them down and put them on the beat instead. So on the beat and then down an octave to the A there. So now they're not interfering with the notes, they're actually playing before or after. Now it might sound like it's the same as this one, with a different rhythm of course, but it sounds like it's on the beat at the moment because we don't have any context. As soon as we put this click in, you can hear it's just after. And that makes all the difference when you start adding groove in. Now it's entirely up to you, we can continue filling these gaps, like so. So now you get a more rolling effect, but to get groove, have some gaps. And this proves especially handy if you add a quantizer and add some swing. You can see now we've got this, but we're going to have a few overlapping notes. So let's just shorten them down. I've just hit J on the keyboard to remove the quantize so I can resize them freehand. And suddenly we've got this nice groove going on. And if we was to add some rolling notes in the bottom, so you can hear that it's interfering with the pattern because it's just how it works on that. But we could add the gap notes. See, this is just being experimental now, where there's still a gap here. Just add those few notes in. And you might add now that, oh, that sounds like a bass. And yes, you could use those two notes that are happening at the end of every second beat, shall we say. So there's 1, 2, 1, 2, or 1, 2, 3, 4. So on the second and fourth, you can use them to accentuate your bass and use that rhythm as your bass. There's so many different things that you can pull from just these ideas. And this is how ideas start building in my head when it comes to creating an arpeggiated sequence that sounds unique and slightly different. These are the little things that I do and just experiment. And it's all dependent on the sound as well. Like this sound works really well. It's got tons of dynamic in it. It's really low end. It's got some nice top end without being too harsh. Of course, designed by myself. Presets coming at some point. And if we was to jump into another preset, not as effective. Nice sound, but it's just not quite as effective. Okay, so we have a few different ways of approaching there. If we was to take that same rhythm and put it on the beat so you can hear the difference between the two. So now that would have to be offset like that. That note goes to the end. So now we have two different rhythms, and you'll hear this once I start putting a click track on. So the first one has more groove, it has like a bit more of a funky vibe to it, whereas the second one just, it hits on the notes, it still keeps that kind of swung vibe, but it doesn't have as much. It sounds nice, don't get me wrong, but you've got to think about how your melody is going to start, and it's more impactful when it's not on the beat a lot of the times. If you listen to some of your favourite arpeggiated sequences from your favourite tracks, you'll hear most of that they won't actually start on the beat unless they are literally the upfront focus of the track, the main focus of it. If it's all background stuff, it tends to flow in and out of all the straight rhythms and fit in between. And then this one. And the notes are slightly displaced, as you can see, having to shift everything along. I've just shifted the bass over, and the note that overlaps in there, I just moved it over there. So there's so many ways that we can approach that. That is just a few ways that I like to approach arpeggios. You can see we've just gone from having something very simple to bringing a little bit of difference to it and then starting to shift it around. We can look at one more. I'll give you a bonus tip here. If we open this, let's grab this loop so it's over here. Okay, so quantize that so it's all in order. Just make sure our quantize is on, and we can change the position again. You've seen me do this before. Take that second note of the chord and put it an octave higher to start creating some open gaps. And these open gaps are then where you can better fit vocals, where you can better fit pads and strings, atmospheres, all that sort of stuff. It's like a space to breathe. So think of this as a room. I'll draw a box and you can see the bottom notes of the square are the floor and the ceiling like you'd expect. And you can see there's a lot of breathing room between each note. If we draw this around the box here, yes, there's a lot of breathing room above, but nothing in between. So just have an experiment. It does work and you'll have some surprising results. So let's have a listen to what this sounds like. Just going to turn off the quantize for now. Not really my cup of tea, but you can start messing around with these things. Like we could put a bit of a bigger gap. And we could actually move that over. So let's just shift that. And you can get that kind of Cafe Del Mar vibe. So if you're not familiar with Cafe Del Mar, you should be. Go and have a look at some earlier trance influences. And if we put that, so you start to get that pace, and you can feel things turn in a different direction. You might not even end up making an arpeggio, but that is always a good place to start. So you know that we've got the C and the D, but we haven't got the A in there, so we could just add the A in on the beat there. Or don't forget to play around with velocities as well. And obviously I've not set up velocity control on this synth, but a lot of presets, especially mine, will have this velocity sensitivity, so you can have quieter notes and then louder notes, and I showed you that in that previous video as well. Let's just have that like that for now. So you can start generating some really interesting results. And you can manipulate the rhythm as well, so you can hear there now, because we've put that straight 8th note rhythm in the bottom in the bass, it starts to make that top bit sound less rhythmic. But if we remove them, we've got more bounce again. So just play around with the notes. It's not always about adding some quantize that we added before. There's different ways to do that. And that was just shifting 2 notes up and having this one stay on the same octave, as you can see there. And play that with a metronome. And if you put a bit of quantize on, you get a bit more groove. Depending on what you're trying to make, if you're making some more progressive trance, that's going to work really well. If you're making 138, that's probably not going to work so well because you're going to be hitting a faster tempo for a start and it has less room to maneuver, but it's not to say that you can't do it. And that brings us to the end of the video. So if you enjoyed the video, let me know down in the comments. I get back to everybody. It's really nice to read some of the feedback that's coming back in about the videos, because then we can further all the information that I can provide, obviously, in future videos. Also, hit the like button, does share it around everybody, and Google seems to pick it up in the YouTube rankings, and people start to find these videos. And that just gives me more motivation to continue and make even better videos every time. Finally, hit subscribe, 3 videos per week, and if you hit the bell icon, you'll be notified as soon as they are uploaded. And that is, the schedule is actually going to change again, but I will announce that on my Facebook. So at the moment, it is Monday, Wednesday, and Saturdays. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.